Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a truly remarkable piece of writing. We're going to review and unpack a deeply personal, medically detailed, and honestly surprisingly gripping ebook. It's called My Second Angioplasty by Cheng-Ho Chua. If you've ever wondered how modern medical marvels intersect with human resilience, or how a seemingly perfectly healthy body can hide a literal ticking time bomb, well, you are definitely in the right place. Okay. Let's dive into this, because this question right here, it's the shocking paradox at the absolute core of Chua's story. We often equate physical performance with internal health, right? We just assume that if our muscles can push through extreme endurance, our internal organs must be pristine. But Chua's story completely shatters that assumption. It reveals how extreme physical fitness can entirely mask silent, progressive arterial disease. Crazy, right? Section 1. The Illusion of Fitness, High Altitudes and Hidden Blockages. To really grasp this illusion, we have to look at Chua's life right before his diagnosis. The guy was trekking at staggering altitudes in places like Yunnan, pushing his body to the absolute limit. He felt totally invincible. But as the ebook points out with this super sobering realization, physical fitness and healthy coronary arteries are not always the same thing. His elite, highly active retirement was actually masking these silent warning signs, right up until a routine stress test flagged a subtle, kind of weird abnormality. There is this highly deceptive contrast between a body's physical output and the actual biological plumbing of the heart. Think about it. You've got cardio fitness. That's your VO2 max, your endurance, your ability to hike those mountains. But then you have cardio health, the physical, structural condition inside your coronary arteries. As Chua learned the hard way, you can have elite-level endurance on the outside while silently accumulating dangerous plaque on the inside. Now, exercise is incredible for you, absolutely crucial, but it doesn't automatically erase decades of plaque buildup. And that hidden plaque, it led to a totally shocking angiogram result. Despite passing a rigorous stress test just a year prior, Chua had a heavily calcified 80% narrowing at one of the most critical junctions in his entire heart. 80%. And we're not just talking about soft plaque either. This was rock-hard calcium that had been silently accumulating for years and years. Section 2. Cracking Stone with Sound, the Marvel of Modern Cardiology. So, this brings us to the hospital room where the ebook basically turns into a medical thriller. A standard stent simply wasn't going to fix Chua's concrete-like calcified plaque. Actually, had this been earlier in history, it would have meant straight-up open-heart bypass surgery. Chua does a brilliant job in this book outlining the evolution of treatment, from balloon angioplasties back in the late 70s, to stents in the 90s, to drug-eluting stents in the 2000s, and finally, the breakthrough that literally saved his chest from being cracked open: intravascular lithotripsy, a technology that only became routine clinical practice around 2018 to 2021. So what exactly is intravascular lithotripsy, or IVL? The book explains it beautifully without getting bogged down in medical jargon. Basically, it's a specialized balloon that emits acoustic pressure waves to safely fracture brittle calcium inside the artery wall. Chua uses this brilliant metaphor in his review. Imagine tapping a porcelain cup with a spoon. The cup remains intact, right? But tiny, microscopic cracks form beneath the surface. Lying wide awake on the table, Chua literally felt this technology as a gentle, rhythmic tapping deep inside his chest, cracking the stone inside his artery. Just incredible. Section 3. Rebuilding the Crossroads, the 2.5-hour ordeal. And this brilliantly illustrates the massive anatomical challenge the surgical team faced once that stone was cracked. The blockage was located at the left main bifurcation. This is a supercritical junction where the artery splits to supply blood to the left anterior descending artery, infamously known as the widowmaker and the circumflex artery. It is a highly tricky crossroads. If you treat one branch and accidentally crush the opening to the other, the results are catastrophic. Both branches absolutely must remain protected and open. To solve this complex puzzle, the medical team executed a multi-step procedure that Chua outlines in his appendix. And let me tell you, he turns what could be a dry surgical report into a gripping narrative. First, they used an ultrasound from inside the artery to map out the landscape. Second, they used the shockwave IVL to crack that calcium. Third, they deployed 2 specialized drug-eluting stents, including a heavy-duty Megatron stent. Finally, in an elegant maneuver called kissing balloon inflation, they inflated 2 balloons simultaneously in both branches. This perfectly shapes the intersection and ensures blood can flow freely down both pathways. Section 4. The Mental Mountain. Recovery is psychological. Now, the physical surgery was a complete success. But as the book transitions into its final act, we see that recovering from a major cardiac event is not just physical. This brings up a deeply profound question the ebook wrestles with. How do you learn to trust your heart again? Because think about it, before the surgery, an elevated heart rate meant freedom and adventure to him. But after the surgery, every single increased heartbeat triggered massive anxiety. Was a stent failing? Was he pushing too hard? And it definitely didn't help that in the days following the procedure, his smartwatch showed his VO2 max dropping as his body dealt with the physical trauma. Talk about messing with your head. Chua writes that trust simply isn't restored instantly, no matter how many times a doctor reassures you. It is built through repetition. For him, it started with short, slow, brilliantly uneventful daily walks around his neighborhood. Then, a major milestone, successfully flying to Bali to attend his daughter's wedding without any incidents, and, eventually, giving in to his adventurous spirit and cautiously snorkeling in cool waters alongside giant manta rays. Each normal heartbeat was just another brick in the foundation of his returning confidence. The real test, however, came shortly after in Komodo National Park. Chua faced a climb of 800 steps up Padar Island under the blazing Indonesian sun. Now, before the surgery, he wouldn't have even thought twice about a hike like this. But this time, it meant absolutely everything. He climbed slowly, constantly monitoring his heart, really listening to his body. And when he finally reached the top, looking out over 3 magnificent, crescent-shaped bays, his heart was beating naturally and normally. Standing on that hilltop, Chua reflected on a profound lesson, writing, "Recovery is measured in confidence, not kilometers." I just love that. He wasn't comparing his speed to younger hikers, and he wasn't worried about breaking records anymore. He was just so entirely grateful that he had learned to trust his heart again. This realization right here provides the ebook with just incredible emotional resonance. Section 5. Lessons from the ebook. What prospective patients must know. So the crucial point is, what can we as prospective patients actually take away from all this? Chua wrote this ebook to bridge the gap between cold medical science and human comfort. Here are his essential takeaways. First, do not ignore gradual changes. Chua noticed a slow decline in his VO2 max on his smartwatch, but just chalked it up to aging. Your body whispers before it shouts, folks. Second, exercise is fantastic and it delayed his symptoms for years, but it does not stop plaque formation. Third, modern tests like a treadmill, ECG, or early warning systems, they aren't crystal balls. And finally, never, ever skip your follow-up appointments. Proactive monitoring literally saved his life. I highly recommend checking out the ebook, My Second Angioplasty. It's a brilliant reminder that medicine and lifestyle are partners. They're not alternatives to each other. And it leaves us with this final provocative thought to consider today. Are you listening to the quiet warning signs of your own heart? Health isn't just about how far you can run or how many mountains you can climb. It's about what's happening on the inside. Don't wait for a crisis to start paying attention.